Hello, and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals. And hey, today we have somebody who's going to help us do both at the same time, which is awesome. His name is Tim, also known as Jai Baker, the CEO of Luminous Wealth and the author of The Awakened Investor, who, after a 3-year sabbatical from a remarkable 4-decade career as a wealth advisor, has redefined the landscape of financial management with his innovative virtual multifamily office. Tim's unique approach combines evidence-based wealth management with Blue Zone research, focusing on holistic living that enhances both longevity and quality of life. Jai, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, Christine, thank you for having me on. I look forward to our conversation.
Me too. So it's
Yeah.
kind of it's unusual for us to have somebody who sort of incorporates both sides of my Phil thing, right? Where you're thinking about people's financial health, but you're also thinking about their quality of life and how they enjoy those later years, right? It's not enough just to live for a long time. You actually want to be happy and healthy at the same time. So can you just tell us a little about how that came about?
Yeah, well, I mean, all these major aspects of us are interrelated. You can't manage money in a silo. Your health affects your finances. Your relationships affect your estate planning decisions on who you're going to give your assets to. Your emotional intelligence affects your discernment for making decisions in all aspects of your life. Your diet affects your health. And so all of these are very important. And in the year around 1250, actually the word wealth, the etymology of it meant was wheel, and it meant prosperity, riches, health, and well-being. And then somewhere along the 1400s, it got dumbed down to just currency. And, to me, it doesn't matter if somebody has, $1 billion. If they have poor health and they have poor relationships, what kind of life is that? That's not a wealthy life.
Exactly.
And so, actually in America, I've recognized through my work through the years that Americans don't have a good relationship with money. Years ago, I was working with a radiology clinic. I was managing the retirement plans. It was 68 physicians. I was working with a lot of the private practice docs as well. But this particular day, I had a luncheon with the non-docs, their executive staff. There was 14 of them, and their incomes were anywhere from 60,000 to 260,000, and that's one half of the household income. So that's a pretty good economic swath of American workers. So we had a luncheon, and I heard somebody mention during the lunch something negative about money. And I said, okay, we're going to stop lunch right now. And this was just impromptu. I had never done this before. I had never thought about this before. But I said, we're going to have a little meditation here. And I said, what I'm going to want you to do is sit, get rested, feel comfortable, take 3 really deep, long breaths. And I'm going to say a word after we do this. And then after I say the word, keep your eyes closed. Sensate in your body what you're feeling, whether it's negative, positive, or neutral. And then just sit there for a moment. And so they did. They took 3 deep breaths. And then I said the word money. And then I let it just sit in the air for a little bit. And then after a pause, I said, now keep your eyes closed. And among you, who had a negative sensation in their body about money? How many do you think out of 14 would have had a negative sensation?
I bet more than half.
All 14.
Wow.
All 14. So, if you're not feeling good about your partner, you're just an accident looking for a place to happen. And this is what we are as Americans with wealth and money. We represent 4.2% of the world population here in the States. And yet we've created 62% of the world's business valuation.
Wow.
PBS has done these documentaries on retirement in America. What a dilemma. How can we have such an issue with money when we control 62% of it? So it's that relationship that we have with money. It's the delivery system that provides us the advice services for our wealth, the banks, the insurance companies, and Wall Street that's a muddy landscape for the consumer, and it doesn't serve them very well. But the root cause of all of this, I know, is we have a disconnect from our soul. We've become completely disconnected. We feel like we're just this physical skin and matter with these five senses, and that's it. And so when you're feeling separate from everybody, you are going to just grab that last slice of the economic pie before somebody else takes it. But the conscious person says, go ahead and take it. I'm just going to make another pie,
Yeah.
because they trust that all of consciousness, their God state, whatever their religious background beliefs are, if they are truly practicing and knowing that faith to be true, they're not having these material world issues like we're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, money really at its core, it's just a tool. It's energy. It's just something that you can use to have other stuff. There's no great thrill in just like taking money and piling it up in the corner of your bedroom, right? It's like that's not the fun part.
You're exactly right. You know, as you point out, money is a neutral tool, just like nuclear power is a neutral tool. You can light up cities with it, or you can blow up people with it. It's the character that reveals the use through the use of the tool that makes it look good or bad,
Right.
not the tool itself. So money isn't good or bad. It's the character that's revealed through the use of that money that makes it look good or bad.
Yeah. But there is a certain media component to money as a bad thing. Think about Scrooge and, Grinch and all these entities, right, where they have lots of money and it's because they're so cruel and they don't care about people. And right, that's how you get money is you just step on everyone else. That's not, that's like a message that gets given to kids, young people as they're growing up, that there's some association between money and being a really nasty person. So to aspire to have it just seems like, might not be a great thing, right?
Right. But, you know, there's also the equal number of positive stories around that. But to your point, the Scrooge story, he didn't feel connected with those people he was stepping on.
Right.
And I love the years ago when I was in India, there was a reporter. I was reading this article. There was a reporter that had asked Ramana Maharshi, which is one of the revered gurus of all of India of all times. And the reporter asked him, how should we treat others? And Ramana said, there are no others. We're all one. We're all connected.
Yeah.
So you should be treating everybody else the way that you want to be treated.
Right.
And, that simple principle heals so many things in our life.
It's true. When people say things like that, it reminds me of that weird movie, I Heart Huckabees. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but basically they take some stuff like lumps of things and then they put a blanket over it to indicate like, this is the table and this is the chair and this is the whatever, but we're all the blanket, right? And that's what it is,
Yeah.
right? We are all just an energy
Yeah.
field in different forms and different vibrating at different frequencies. So it's just, we're all
Yeah.
energy. We're all the blanket. We just need to accept that and realize it. And right, it just, I don't know, maybe like you say, it gets rid of that otherness, that feeling that someone's different from us.
No, and that's a great example, your blanket example for people to relate to. I mean, it's a good visual for me. So, in the work that I do in the area of wealth management, I actually start out in working with somebody through a human archetype assessment tool, because what I want people to know right off the bat is to know thyself. To know thyself is to know all of reality. All of all of reality is what's eternal. This temporal body here we have on this earth is an illusion. And so, but we also have to respect that world as well. And so there's actually two parts to knowing thyself. One is to recognize that we're all of eternity, but the other is to recognize ourselves as we were programmed through age 7. So whether you believe in reincarnation or not doesn't matter. We do know that we come from this lineage and we have this DNA in our body, and then we're in mom's womb for 9 months as an embryo, and we're taking on her chemistry and her emotions through that 9 months. And then we come out, and through age 7, our minds are at a frequency of theta. So that's a state where it's a sponge. It's absorbing everything from its environment as truth. This is the way the world works. It doesn't have the ability to say, no, that's not true. Then at age 7, we form the beta mind frequency, the low, mid, high. And this is where you and I are speaking right now. I can say something and you can go, that's not true. But before age 7, we have to accept everything as truth. And so we've been programmed by everybody else's desires and their limitations of life, and then the experiences we've had in our environment. And yeah, there's a lot of those things that are good, but there's a lot of things that then we grow up with that are limiting beliefs about ourselves and our world. We don't recognize our authentic light that we came from. And so usually it takes a pain event for us to discover this after age 7. Because if you live your whole life with that programming, whether you're 7, 17, 27, or 77, you're a 7-year-old. If you haven't changed your programming, you're a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And so I would say you've lived a life that's been fated to you. But if you can wake up at some point in your life, and it doesn't have to be a pain event that wakes you up, you can just decide on your own, I think there's something absolutely better for me than the way that I've been experiencing life. I want to change my assumptions of life. I want to change my perspective of life. And by changing your assumptions, you're going to change your experience. And so there's a lot of work, and it's usually a lifetime of work to do that reprogramming. But it's out there for us all, and it's all possible, and it's very entertaining and liberating, very freeing as well.
It's true. It's true. And so two things. First is we talk a lot on this show about law of attraction and, how your mindset is kind of the where you are is a result of your mindset and where you expect to be and how you address the world and how you expect to be, how you expect life to be, I guess. And
Mhm.
but the other thing is that not everybody gets this and feels this way. And so I'm wondering if your clients are coming to you because you've attracted them because they're sort of on the same wavelength, or do you sometimes get clients who are like, what the heck are you talking about? And then if so, what's the process of sort of bringing them into the fold or, helping them to see what you see?
Right. Well, first of all, you have to meet everybody where they are. There's no reason, there's no way to convince somebody of anything. You are living by example and you're telling your story. And if it resonates with them, great. If it doesn't resonate with them, great. But what we do is we show the roadmap, the blueprint for what is possible in our life and those aspects in our life that we need to check in on to see if they're in balance, to see if they're in a state where we want them to be or not. And so that's where this holistic approach of combining not just wealth management, but the Blue Zone research, those aspects of those cultures with longevity and the highest quality of living have. But through my career, my clients 80% of my clients were people in the medical field, doctors, executives at hospitals themselves, 80% of them. So, but yeah, I worked with economic professors at universities, people who are advisors to the Federal Reserve Bank chairmen and these type of people, CEOs of publicly traded companies. And through those 35 plus years, I was working with those families in the middle of their career and into the middle of their retirement. And I thought, as long as we're meeting or exceeding those goals that we had established through all of those years through our planning work, that they would be contented. And what I found out was they weren't. Actually, my wealthiest client was my most stressed out client. And so before I sold that firm 4 years ago, I brought in an Ayurvedic practitioner for mind, body, spirit work because I wanted to be able to heal that aspect of who we are in our life. But I never, in my career, I never evangelized my consciousness philosophies. The only thing that gave anything away was for 25 years, I always signed my quarterly letters, Namaste. And so for a lot of people, I was their Hindu brothers, other their Buddhist brother, other just their brother. And but that was the only thing. But I did have in the last year before I sold my firm, I had two clients come to me. One was a radiologist. And the year before, he called me up out of the blue and he says, I pray, I don't meditate. I said, Steve, that's great. Keep praying. I pray as well. And then we went on with our conversation. I don't know where that call came from, but it did. Well, he goes into retirement and he calls me up about a year after he retires and he says, I've been able to have time now to do things that I couldn't do before in my medical career and think about things in a way that I had never thought about before. And he said, I think I'd like for you to teach me to meditate.
Cool.
And he says, I also know that that we can heal our bodies, and I'm getting ready to have knee surgery, and maybe you can help me with my not having to have knee surgery. And I said, well, the first thing you have to do is stop talking about the knee surgery.
Yeah.
But the same week, I got a call from this dear client of mine. She was 74 years old. I'd worked with her and her husband for 30 years plus, met them every quarter in their offices. They were both psychologists, and he had just passed away 5 years before. And she calls me up, and it was a rare disease that he had, and I was fortunate to have lunch with him the week before he passed. And he said, if I had can ever say anything about any philosophy of life, he says, I'm going to say this. He said, if you will just let it go. He said, I wish I would have just let things go earlier in my life and things wouldn't have been so complicated, so chaotic, so drama filled.
Right.
And so, what is letting go of? And letting go of is that ego, that psyche that we carry around, that persona that we built about ourselves and who we are and trying to protect it. And if we can just let that go and see through the mist and understand that we're just all one, and we're not different than the other person that we're speaking with. It's massive. But she called me up and she said, it's been 5 years since he's passed, and I'm starting to lose that connection with him. I had felt him in my world until now. And she said, and through the years, I noticed that you and him had, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't want it to be known. I noticed that you and him were connected like brothers. You used to were in flow. You were sharing the same materials and talking the same languages. She was Catholic and she was included in all the information and whatnot. But apparently she felt a little bit different in some aspects of our conversations. But I love her to death. But she said, I'm starting to feel his disconnect. And I feel like maybe that if I learned to meditate, I could get that connection back. And I mean, those were two people in 1 week that were approaching me with this. And so that's why I brought in this mind, body, spirit professional. But then shortly after that, I sold my firm. And then the next year I was consulting for a year, but they didn't need me. The next year I told people I was writing a book, but it wasn't. I had already had it pretty much written. And then the third year, my story got old to me. So I said, I got to finish this now. And so I did. And it came out a year ago, The Awakened Investor. And along the way, I knew I was going to recreate what I did before, but in a different way. I wanted it to be in a much more balanced way where wealth management is just 1/8 of the major aspects of who we are.
Yeah.
And so I've brought in a team around me that support our clients in that work. And so that's how it all came about.
That's great. So while we're talking about that, you might as well say why we're calling you Jai now instead of Tim.
So in the year 2005, in April of that year, I had scheduled to go to a Dr. Deepak Chopra retreat in San Diego. It was going to be in October, and it was called Secrets to Enlightenment. And at the same time, I saw he had this temple tour in India for 2 weeks, and in the following year, and so I signed up to do that as well. And then about a month went by, and I started thinking about my work and my clients, and I'm thinking too big about myself. And I said, I don't have time to take 2 weeks off. My clients need me more than that. I got to stay here. And I canceled the trip,
Oh,
canceled it. But the same year, in September 2nd, I lost my 21-year-old daughter to an auto wreck.
oh.
And when that happened, the temple tour came back on my calendar. Nothing else mattered in my life. It mattered and it didn't matter. I can say that. Every day for me, everything is uber important and it's not important at all, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't make sense to most people. You do your best, but then you just detach and let go.
You have
And,
to.
and whatever happens is going to happen. That's from the results of that.
Yeah.
And so I went to India in the following January in the Tamil Nadu region. That's the southern region of India. And we visited 5 cities. Also had dinner with the Prince of Tanjore in his palace. We were greeted with a fire parade and
Wow.
got to speak with the prince for a while and toured the palace. Only Deepak Chopra can put an event together like that. There was
Yeah.
20 of us on this trip together, half from Europe and half from the States. And one of the cities we visited was Tiruvannamalai. It has the largest temple in South India, and that's at the base of Mount Arunachala. On the other side of Mount Arunachala is a Sri Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi ashram. So I was staying there, and I woke up at 4 a.m. one morning. I did a 2-hour meditation, and then I'm walking down this long, wide path to the ashram for breakfast. And along the way were some breakfast vending carts on the right side of the path, like you'd see in New York City. And on the other side of these carts were these guys in orange robes. They're called sadhus. They've renounced materialism. And it could be a 46-year-old attorney with a wife and 6 kids. And he goes home one night and says, after tomorrow, Dad's going to be living off the earth and you won't see me again. And so I went over there and I gave these group of men money so they could get breakfast that morning. And then I went down the path for my own. And this one little guy comes running up behind me. He came up to about height of my chin. He had bald headed, big smile. He had his hands in prayer position. And he said, thank you. He says, I name you Jai. And I looked down and I said, Jai? He said, yeah, Jai in Hindu means victory. Today was my victory. You gave me food. And then he put this holy ash on my forehead. And then I saw him in the ashram for the next day and a half or so.
Cool.
So
That's
it brings
nice.
back good memories. And yeah, it's like it happened yesterday.
That's fun. So I guess if people aren't familiar with the Blue Zone research, can you just touch on that really quickly?
Yeah, there's about 7 cultures around the planet that have um, shown that with their lifestyles that they live beyond age 100 and uh, and and there are aspects of their life with their physical health, their diet, their entertainment, their sociability, their relationships, their careers, their emotional intelligence, their daily practices of spirit that illustrate why these people have the highest quality of life and live the longest. And so there's actually a lot of cities now that are um, reforming their identities, and they're doing that. And a way to inspire their city to do this is bringing in all the aspects of the Blue Zone research, trying to mimic a lot of those qualities of how those cultures have been living. And so those are the areas that we work with our clients in. And I have a professional staff that works in those areas. We have a body nutrition coach, a consciousness mindfulness coach, spiritual advisor, lifestyle coach, and we're bringing in an environmental advisor. And we also just recently brought in a hypnotherapist. And so these are all aspects that will soothe the soul and help us master the mind. Because I believe that, I went to a conference a couple of months or a year or so ago, and the speaker that day led the conference off by saying money is the biggest stressor in America. And everybody was nodding their heads. And I said, no, it's not. And he was stunned. He said, you want to say more? I said, master your mind and you master your money.
Yeah.
You master your relationships, you master your career, you master your health. So for me, it's a hermetic universal principle that All of consciousness is mental. It's mentalism. And so if we can, in this being state, master our minds, we'll master all these other aspects of our life. And I have this theory that of those 8 aspects we work in, if we can master those 7, with the 8th one being the financial piece and keeping that apart, if we master those 7, for people, money won't even be an issue. They won't think about it. It'll just flow into their life naturally, easily, and there won't be any stressing over this whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't, it shouldn't really be a stressor, right? It's a stressor because what people aren't, they're, they feel like it's going to answer all their questions and solve all their problems, or they feel like if they just had another $50 or $50,000 or 50 million bucks, that that would take care of all
Yeah,
their problems, right? It's
yeah,
not really,
yeah,
it doesn't really work like that.
yeah. But most people don't. People that feel that way don't feel connected with their higher self, and that's
Right.
where it starts. That's where the foundation of that 10-story building is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. So I'm curious, when you first start working with somebody, how does that look? Like how does the process, sort of the intake process kind of work so that you are incorporating all these 8 aspects?
Um, well, thanks for asking me that, because actually I created a video and put it on our website that goes through that, because I find that very important.
Mhm.
Um, but I've done this for many years, where I start out with the human archetype assessment. It's a 44 questionnaire, and people need to spend 10 or 15 minutes in a quiet spot to be able to go through this. But that questionnaire, based on Carl Jung's type of work of personas, will place us in one of 10 personas, broad personas, and then it drills down to your unique thumbprint of who you are. And it starts to reveal the qualities and attributes, those behavior patterns that are serving you, and then also those behavior patterns that aren't serving you. And those are our biases and our blind spots. And we never recognize those. We continue to have these negative experiences in our life, and we keep looking outside going, where's the problem out there, when it's always right here. Well, we can't see it right here because we're so much of that as a behavior. Water doesn't know itself to be wet, fire doesn't know itself to be hot. So when we have these biases, these blind spots, we can't see them. And a lot of times I'll bring in, um, usually I'm working with partners, but I have individual clients. But when I have 2 people come in my conference room and we start to talk about these assessments, the first person will start to talk and they go, this was like 95% of this was me, but this one piece over here, that's not me. And usually their partner is across the table and they've got this big grin on their face because they go, that's exactly who you are.
Yeah.
And so we start out with this, and so that helps us to know thyself, what we need to work on. And then I develop a family genogram. A family genogram I do because I know all of life is a fractal. It's infinite repeating patterns of information. You see it in the cosmos, you see it in in nature, and you see it in the human behavior pattern. And when you get a family's lineage on one piece of paper, the grandparents, the parents, and you get 7 or 8 key data points, and you get the money scripts, and then you get the siblings, and you get their information, and then you get the children, what kind of money scripts you're passing down to them. You start to see a family pattern there, and you know why you are who you are now. You go, oh, people will go, oh my God, this is it. This is why I am the way I am. And so then I take them through the money meditation process, wanting to get a sense for where they are in their relationship, what they're feeling towards money. It's very critical. And then I ask them, what's the source of their joy? What's the source of their contentment? And through the years, I don't think I've ever really gotten the answer I was hoping to hear. What I usually get is people will say, well, my vacation home or my grandkids or my horse farm or my airplane or my golf course. Well, it tells me what they're interested in, but it doesn't tell me what the source of their joy is.
Right.
I'm always hoping to hear that one person say, well, the source of my joy is me. And and out of that joy gets reflected back to me from my outer world, that joy. And here's what it looks like. And so that's where I start with people, because in the financial world, 40 some years ago, I was taught to know your client. And it was typically done with 10 questions to somebody. And they are all stupid questions. People didn't know the answer to this. They was just unfamiliar with the information anyway. And that doesn't help you know the client, because the client doesn't know themselves. So that's why I go through this deep and wide discovery with clients. And, I would have thought, and over the last 10, 15 years of me doing this, and usually I'm doing this with people I might have just met for the very first time, because my business in my world was always a referral only business. It's different now. I'm coming out of the ground with this new creation. I'm in a different state, and I didn't know anybody when I moved here. But uh, I lost my thought there for a second. Help me
Well, you're
out.
talking about the question, the answering the questionnaire
Oh,
and stuff.
yeah. So they don't know themselves. And so this is a way for us to go deep and wide and understanding the personality, starting to help people bubble up their authentic self, so that when we get to the goal setting session, they're not repeating what their colleagues want to buy, or what the colleagues' retirements are going to look like, or what their parents told them their life should be like. They're starting to think, well, this is really what I want to do. And that's very different than what all those other people were telling me to do. So now we can get some authentic goals in place. And then we finally get to the financial facts. And then I get with my team and we develop a forward-looking financial plan with our present moment thoughts. Um, and so the financial plan is a very key component, and it can't be a one and done. It's a living, breathing document. It's your family mission statement. And our advisors are philosophically aligned with the clients that we're working with, because we're fiduciaries of their lives. We have to place their interests ahead of our lives. And we're guided by this document. And so, in November and December of each year, the wealth advisor, the attorney, and the CPA, they have to be joined at the hips to come up with the very best strategies for the clients that we're working with. And so it's very difficult to do that if a person is working with all of those multidisciplinary professionals that are outside of an office that don't know each other. So in my world, I have this team around me. We work with each other every day. And so we can be collegially challenging each other with the strategies that we want to see if they work with the client. But at the end of the day, there's one best answer that's going to come to fruition. And that's what's going to be presented to our clients. And so no one component of our professionals are irreplaceable. I mean, we have great CPAs in our country, great attorneys in our country, great wealth advisors. But where the magic come in is when you bring all those people together, where they know each other and they're working with each other every day under the same philosophy. That's the magic.
What
And
and
it's
what is that?
and it's not usually business isn't conducted that way, except for the uber wealthy in America. It used to be the $100 million size net worth family and above, then it came down to 50 million above, and then about 5 or 10 years ago, some of the family office services like GenSpring of the world came down to 25 million and above. But it's still an unfamiliar way of conducting a person's wealth life in the way that I just described.
Yeah, but it's makes perfect sense, right? You really need, if you have those, everybody's aligned and they're all on the same page and they all understand your goals from the same perspective, then you're much more likely to succeed.
Absolutely. And succeed financially. But again, I get back to,
Succeed holistically, you're more likely to.
we're at such a deficit from our happy spot here in America, and happiness is is lifetime. It's eternal. Joy is not giddy. Joy to me also equals contentment. Okay. I'm not talking, pleasure is not joy. Pleasure is something that's short term and temporary, that probably is bad for you long term. Most of those pleasure things are bad for you long term. I'm just talking about being in a state of nirvana, and nirvana is not ecstasy. Nirvana is consistent contentment.
Hmm. So, Jai, what does that look like for you when you think about like your goals? Like if you were to sit down with yourself as a third party and say, all right, I've answered these questions and now I've got this goal for my future and what I want my life to look like. What does that look like for you?
I lead with my heart. I used to, and I still practice on getting out of my mind, my thinking mind, because that's limited information. And when you lead from your heart, you've tapped into all of conscious, the infinite amount of information that's out there. And so I might have a calendar of activities one day, and none of them may take place because something else came, and I'm gonna move that way because my intuition says this is what is being revealed to me, and I need to surrender to that.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna be present with that information, with that activity, with that person for this day. And so I have, I mean, for me, I've been in wealth management for 40 years. People look at me. Well, this is kind of funny. So I've gone on a lot of retreats through the years. I started my meditation practice in 1997 with Dr. Deepak Chopra, learning our chakra meditation techniques in Australia. And so I've gone to a lot of retreats through the years as well, anywhere from 3 days to a week long, 10 days. And usually after a couple of days, somebody asks me, what do you do for a living? And I tell them I'm in wealth management. And they say, how can you be in wealth management and be so spiritual? And I say, well, that tells me more about you than it does about me, right? Because as we talked about, money is a neutral tool. And so for me, people see me in the wealth management business, but when I look back at the essence of my work, it's all been about nudging people to wake up, to become consciously aware of what they're doing and who they are and what they're being. And because most people live in this have, do, be world. So they they get it, become an adult, they see what they want to have, then they figure out what they got to do to get it, and then that's who they become. And usually that lacks integrity and morality at some level. Instead of working from the aspect of being, doing, and then having, and whatever that doing produces is what you have. Now it all fits together. You're in alignment with your higher self, with what you're here experiencing in this body, in this world, and what your passions are. And just out of those creations and experiences and contentment turns into work of service for other people that provides you a return of revenue that you can then decide, well, what level of life can I live on with this revenue? But most people do it backwards. And so my body of work has been just to nudge people, support them where they are, let them know where they can go, but not try to convince them of anything.
Perfect. So, Jai, we're kind of bumping up against our time here. So I want to ask you if there's anything that you wish we would have talked about or anything that you want to make sure people take away from this podcast.
Um, Maybe two or three. Know yourself. And you can go to my website. It's free. It's a very valuable report and provides you videos right away to take that human archetype assessment. Two, find a team, a wealth team. Don't find separate members of that team. Find a wealth team and make sure they're fee only, not fee based. Fee based means they can charge you fees. Oh, but they can also charge you commission. So it has to be a fee only team of fiduciaries. And then have a financial plan developed and review it. Have it available to you any day of the week, all year long, if you need to. You're not going to look at it that often. We don't need to feel our pulse to know that we're living,
Right.
but it certainly has to be a master review every year but be available to tap into at any time.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
And we're going to put this in the show notes also, but do you want to just tell people what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yes, my website, www.luminouswealth.com. Again, you can take my human archetype assessment there. It's no charge. My email is tim@luminouswealth.com. My number is 561-919-4808. And you can get my book, The Awakened Investor, on Amazon and all formats.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being with us. You've shared a lot of interesting information and hopefully some food for thought for people who are in that, mode of having first. Maybe they think about doing a little shift or having a
Yes.
conversation with you to help them do a little shift.
Well, beautiful conversation, Christine. I appreciate you having me on today.
I appreciate you. And we
Yeah.
appreciate you for listening. So, and I bet if you think about it, you could come up with a really good number of people probably, but just to write down at least 5 people who you think would benefit from hearing all that Jai has shared with us today. And forward this episode to them because they will thank you and we will also thank you. And then have a fantastic day and come back next week and see what we have in store for you.